He was remarkably relaxed. There was a typewriter, and there was something in it, but of course we didn't stop to look at it or read it. And he was acting very normal.
After they leave, Charlie continues his letter.
Similar reasons provoke me to take my mother's life. I don't think the poor woman has enjoyed life as she's entitled to. She married a very possessive and dominating man.
At 9:30 p.m., Charlie picks Kathy up from her summer job. When they get home, he lets her go to bed. Then he calls his mother and asks to visit. As soon as he enters her apartment, he attacks her.
He attacked her from behind by hitting the back of her head. He essentially killed her by beating her to death and then turning her body over and then stabbing her in the chest. Then he picked up the body and very gently and carefully placed her on her bed, where he put the covers over her body to make it look as if she was asleep.
There, he calmly writes another note entitled, "To whom it may concern."
I have just taken my mother's life. I am very upset over having done it. However, I feel that if there is a heaven, she is definitely there now.
Then, Charlie blames his father for the murder.
She took enough of his beatings, humiliation, and tribulations. I am truly sorry that this was the only way that I could see to relieve her suffering, but I thought it was best. I loved her with all my heart.
Charlie then drives home. Finding Kathy asleep, he creeps into the bedroom and stabs her 5 times in the chest. He returns to the letter he had been typing earlier. In blue ink, he scrawls on it, 3 a.m., both dead.
The nature of the killings suggests rage. These were both very violent, very close, very upfront personal deaths with someone that he professed to love a great deal.
In his mind, Charlie has done a service to his beloved wife and mother. He purposely leaves his father alive.
The notes are behind saying that all of this is the daddy's fault and life is not worth living because of the daddy, and the only one left behind is the father. And the father has to explain all of this. The father was set up in a very masterful way.
Before dawn, Charlie looks back at his diaries. He underlines parts extolling Kathy's virtues. Then he gathers and packs his gear and makes his way to the top of the tower, knowing the world will finally understand the anguish of Charles Joseph Whitman.
It's an unbelievable sight. The serene University of Texas campus, a temperature approaching 100 degrees now, and apparently a madman located on top of the university tower firing and shooting at any movable target that he can see.
An hour into his rampage, with the police still outgunned, outmaneuvered, and pinned down, Whitman is still firing and finding targets. Now the body count stands at 11 dead and 20 wounded.
Charles Whitman did exactly what he said he was going to do. He held off an army. And it was very, very clear that the police were ill-equipped, ill-trained, and everything went wrong.
Finally, 2 police officers, Ramiro Martinez and Houston McCoy, and civilian Alan Crum, each acting on their own, make a rush for the tower.
They ran through gunfire and dead bodies and blood. They had no idea how many people were up there. There could have been 10 snipers for all they knew.
I got on the elevator and pushed to the 27th floor, the last floor. So I was going up the elevator, of course the little lights, the floors as we passed would light up. I said a perfect act of contrition. It's a prayer that Catholics say if you are expecting to get into some danger or you may die.
They make it to the door, leading to the observation deck.
The first person out the door was Ramiro Martinez. The second person was Alan Crum. Martinez told Crum, "You kill anyone who comes around that corner." Martinez then turned around and went in the opposite direction, hoping to either encounter Whitman or to force him to that corner.
Thinking he hears Whitman running towards his position, Crum fires, forcing Whitman to retreat.
Whitman ran to the northwest corner and sat down and was looking towards the south.
Crum has diverted Whitman's attention. He is looking the wrong way as Martinez comes around the north corner.
You could see the sniper in a sitting position, aiming his rifle. So I fired a shot at him right away. And I know I hit him somewhere on the left side because he came straight up like a cat. But I kept advancing and shooting.
Martinez empties his revolver as McCoy also shoots.
McCoy turned the corner and fired a blast from the 12-gauge shotgun. And the first shot hit Whitman right here and pushed his head back. And almost reflexively, the head came back and the second shot hit him on the side of the head.
Martinez grabs McCoy's shotgun and fires point blank into Whitman. At 1:24 p.m., 96 minutes after firing his first shots from the tower, Charles Whitman is dead. Suddenly, it is over.
People converged on the tower. There were literally a few thousand people there. It was inordinately still, but it was very sad in Austin that night.
This is Neil Spells for the bulletin from the KTBC radio newsroom. The sniper is dead.
Soon the name Charles Joseph Whitman was being broadcast nationwide. America was stunned by his unprecedented rampage.
In the end, he wanted to die, but he wanted to die in a big way, and he wanted to take a lot of people with him, but he didn't want to commit suicide, and he left his father behind to answer all of the questions.
The media found Charles Whitman Sr. in Florida.
Mr. Whitman, when was the last time you heard from Charles?
Approximately 2 weeks ago, I talked to him over the phone.
At that time, did he complain of the headaches that were mentioned?
He was in very good spirit, and he and I had come to some consideration of our feelings about each other's, of a very loving son and a very devoted father to him.
And all of the microphones are in his face, and he says some very, very controversial things. I love guns. I'm a fanatic about guns, and I taught my children how to use guns. Charlie Whitman knew his daddy was going to do that, and he set up his father for a lifetime of having to answer those questions over and over and over again.
As the investigation began, Kathy and Margaret's bodies were found. Police also discovered the notes Charlie had left behind. One, labeled Thoughts to Start the Day, read, "Control your anger. Smile, it's contagious. Pay that compliment," and other bland sentiments. At the top of the page, Charlie had written, "I never could quite make it. These thoughts are too much for me." It was dated August 1st, 1966, the day of the massacre.
Charles Whitman was the kind of a person who was never satisfied with himself, and yet he could never discipline himself to do what he had to do to reach those goals.
Whitman had realized that something was terribly wrong with him. In one of his notes, he had asked for an autopsy to be performed on him after his death to check for any physical abnormalities. Incredibly, when Whitman's body was autopsied by doctors at the University Medical Center, they discovered a rapidly growing, highly malignant cancer of the brain.
They said that that tumor was adjacent and involving a structure called the amygdala. And it's not uncommon for people with tumors of the amygdala to have rage episodes or rage attacks, for which they later feel badly.
Another side effect of this type of tumor is called hypergraphia, an uncontrollable compulsion